Welcome back for another video in this series on ideas for supporting distance learning. I'm really grateful that once again getting a chance to feature some great educators from the ESU 5 World Language program here in Nebraska. Now, DL is not exclusive to world languages, but the program there is amazing, which is why we're partnering with them and have folks like MaryAnn Johnson and Amy Wiedel who are joining us for this conversation where we can lift up different aspects of the work that they do each and every day to try to share that with DL teachers, folks that are more interested in this topic, and how do we grow and get better with teaching and learning via distance education. And so we're going to focus in on the topic of building relationships for this video. This is a series, so check out the other videos as needed. But to start with, this is one that's really important because I have heard, because I've gone out and interviewed DL teachers that have said, gosh, I wondered if this would feel kind of boxed in. I wondered if it would just be sort of me speaking to what feels like an empty room, and there would be a lack of that kind of relationship and interaction that I think many of us who, as classroom teachers, get into the profession because you want to have an impact on a kiddo and you want to be able to show up for them each and every day. And I can say that I've walked into DL classrooms where students huddle around the front to have their conversation with their teacher before class, those informal moments that we all are familiar with, but it just looks a little bit different. And so I'm going to just really from the start here say, MaryAnn, Amy, and I'm not sure who wants to go first here, but what does it mean and how do you build relationships when you're not actually physically on the same site as the students in which you're getting a chance to serve and have in your class?
It is truly possible to build relationships. We do need to consider that. As a distance teacher, there are different ways to do that, and it's essential that we do it in a different way. A lot of times it's going to take us just getting to know our students by social media, getting to know their school culture. So getting to know their social media page to familiarize with the activities that the schools offer and what your students might be participating in. I think that if you show interest in what they are participating in, they right away see that, hey, she cares, and I appreciate that she can acknowledge that, hey, I'm on Quiz Bowl, or I do track, or I play football or volleyball. So those kinds of things are really important.
And I agree with MaryAnn. And another thing that our program does, along with taking time to see what events they're in, we actually attend the schools. So we will go visit the schools once a quarter. And in those visits, we're very intentional in what we do. We really work hard on getting away from computers and doing more fun cultural activities where maybe we bring food, we do a craft with them, but also just having that in-person conversation. And the first time they see you, they're like, oh my gosh, she's real. And you can instantly feel that like connection with them, because it's like you're a celebrity walking into the classroom and, oh my gosh, and kids from the hallways, she's not just on the computer. And so those visits make you truly real, and they just help that connection, because from then on out, they want to know more about you. They are just much more interested in your class. So I feel like not only just taking interest in them, but those site visits just help with that connection.
Wow, that's got to be really fun when you walk in on those days and get a chance to get that feedback from those students. And I think too, it's worth saying that more so than I might have been as a high schooler myself, students are used to conversing through digital technology. And while on the one hand, we don't necessarily want a ton of screen time for students, what we're talking about here though is the opportunity through a large screen at the front to be able to interact with someone like yourselves who can provide a learning experience for them that otherwise your school might not be able to even offer. And so being able to feel stretched to learn and to interact in that modality, I think is important, and is a great opportunity for them to learn how to do that, because gosh, post-secondary asks of that of folks quite a bit, and in the workplace, like we're doing almost right now, quite frankly. So with that, then let's get even more detailed. You mentioned there a little bit, like, okay, let's have a party tour sort of day where there's cultural aspects that we're getting a chance to learn about and instilling into and get that learning piece when you're there on site, for example. But But what other things do you sort of do that highlight the individual and really bring them in a way that they feel seen in your class that fosters those relationships?
I think it's important to, on an individual, well, actually on a daily basis, try to speak to as many of your students as possible, whether it's a simple good morning, um, hey, how did this go last night, or how's the morning been going, kind of thing. As the students come into the classroom, those little quick little conversations. Um, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? Those are just so important to call out their name, that they can hear you, that you see them, and they have the opportunity and feel comfortable speaking to you. Also acknowledging their special days, like birthdays. If you see the back of my room, I have some balloons. And so I'll put balloons up for birthdays, for the classroom birthdays. And our classroom, just try to become a more of a friendly environment, become a unit. We sing happy birthday to everybody on their birthday. So it's just part of trying to make more of a family into your classroom.
I would agree. And I think, just like MaryAnn said, having those conversations and getting to know your students. So maybe a lesson at one school might look a little different than a lesson at a different school, just because you get to know your students and you know their interests. You reach out to them. We take a lot of student feedback in what we do also, and just using that student feedback. So maybe one school wants more interpersonal where they're speaking. Maybe one school wants more games. So just not doing a cookie cutter classroom, is actually getting to know those students, getting their interests, and making sure that you're taking that into account when you're showing up every day with them. And I think another thing is we are with them every single day. So it's not like we are here for 10 minutes and then don't show up for 2 or 3 days. So I think that helps with building relationships too, is just that consistency. They know that I'm going to be online and I'm going to be holding them accountable, and I'm going to ask them about their one act, or I'm going to ask them about their game the night before. And sometimes they'll email you the night, like, Senor Wiedel, we won. You told us our homework was to win our games tonight. We won. And so just that fun, you really do build those relationships. I would say it takes a little more time than in a regular classroom, but they do come. They do build, and you really do build a bond with these students.
And I'm going to draw upon what time I spent teaching in a classroom myself, but I think that you have a little bit of your teacher personality that I think aligns with who you are as a day-to-day person, but it might be, slightly different version of that, or a piece of it perhaps. And then I do think that there's also the need to be intentional with showing that, right? Because there's the opportunity sometimes in class where you're like, gosh, we have so much to get through, and I'm really focused in on making sure that I'm doing what's expected of me, that you can kind of lose you and yourself and what you bring in those moments. And so maybe quickly speak to how it is that you try to be intentional with keeping your sense of teacher self and your personality in this space where there is that additional challenge of being, actually not physically in the classroom.
One way I do that is by letting them know that I like my pets, that I love cats especially. So I use a lot of sense of humor, lots of memes with cats and that kind of thing to draw them into lessons. So that's sort of a fun way that I bring my personality into the classroom. I know it's a dog versus cats in our classes, so it's sort of a fun way to add a little laughter and some of my sense of humor into a lesson. But I think that lets them know a little bit more about me. When we have our family units, I include some of my family information, some photos, and that way they get to know me as well as I get to hear some of their family information. It's nice for them to hear mine too.
And I would agree. I include a lot of pictures. So maybe on the weekend, if something special happened in my family, then maybe I talk about it in Spanish and include that before I ask them about theirs. I have two girls in high school, and it's interesting because I have found my students start following their sports schedules and how they're doing in sports, and they're asking me about it. And so it's kind of cool to have that interaction. Or, I might ask them, hey, what's a popular Christmas gift right now? Just showing them that we are human, and that, and usually that happens maybe in that 2-3 minute passing period when a couple students are in there. So you still do get your lessons, but just taking that time to show them, hey, I am a mom too. And they're interested in what's going on in my life also, which makes a big difference.
Love that. And just, I think and we talked about this in another conversation, but being intentional about being into the Zoom early enough to make yourself available for those conversations when you can, right? Like there's times where there's overlap between classes, but just creating a little bit of extra space for those informal interactions, I'm sure goes a long way. So, we're trying to keep most of these videos around 10 to 12 minutes long. And so we're going to go ahead and bring this particular one to a close. But I would add very quickly that if you're interested in learning more about building relationships with the proctor in the classroom, we have other content that covers that as well and would point folks to that if you're listening in and want to know what does it mean to have that support. But very quickly, I guess I'll ask Amy, MaryAnn, one thing that you do to kind of get on the same page with that proctor in the space.
Communication is so important with them, whether we email or have a quick conversation before or after class. That is so great. I really allow them to know that I trust them. I really want them to know that. And so they are the eyes and ears in the classroom, so they can monitor whatever's happening within the classroom. I'm the teacher, but they're the physical person in the room to make sure that the classroom is in order and that our students are staying on task. So the trust and the communication are really important with our proctors.
I would also say just allowing like myself to be vulnerable. Like if something is going on in the classroom and just being honest with the proctor, like, hey, you're in there. What's going on? What can I do better to make this a better situation for my students? So I think having those hard, honest conversations really builds that relationship with the proctor. And like MaryAnn said, just showing them that, I do trust you and we can work together. We're a team together that makes this successful.
Wow. Well, that's just good insights for folks as they're getting started with this, or even if you've been teaching for a while and looking to kind of enhance your best practices. Hopefully this video series helps. I'm really grateful to the entire World Language Department at ESU 5 for taking a little bit of time from your busy schedules to help share out and lead. I know that you all have some of the best world language experiences shared across the state here in Nebraska. And so folks, if you've not, make sure that you check out their resources and learn more about their program and then throughout these videos. And so we have different educators from that program featured in all of our content. So be sure to access the other videos in this series, and we'll look forward to seeing you in those spaces coming up.